Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the sort of unofficial daily recap at Sports.ws. This is a new thing that I want to try for this year, basically to sort of check in on a daily or close to daily basis, not in like an official capacity, but kind of informally. I thought it would be neat for me to be able to go through the NBA games from the previous night, um, and and in addition to sort of just talking about the games themselves, it gives me a chance to talk about Sports.ws, just some of the features that I use, and some of the features that I think new users might not be completely aware of. So that is something that I want to do. So if that's something you're interested in, this video will be embedded in a unit on our main page at the site. But if you want to subscribe to the channel, the YouTube channel, that's good too, because we've got some other things planned in terms of like weekly fantasy shows. So if you want to click whatever the subscribe button that way, that helps us too. But for now, let's just talk about the day, December 23rd, to be exact. It was kind of a big day in the NBA. It was opening day for a lot of teams. I think there were 12 games. There were supposed to be 13 games. That's one thing that I wanted to tackle first. First of all, the Rockets and the Thunder, they had their game postponed because of an influx of players that couldn't play because they were going through the COVID protocols. And so I wrote about this at Slam. It's all over. It was all over Twitter and everything. You've probably already read about it in general, but basically, players, were forced to go through the COVID protocols because of an incident that happened where players were getting their haircuts at somebody's apartment, and then that's just how the league's going to work this year to keep everybody safe. It took out a bunch of Rockets players in one fell swoop. DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall. I think it was Kenyon Martin Jr. Was also involved, and then and of course on top of that, also unavailable but not related to the haircut incident was James Harden. So that saga continues in Houston, but so there'll be tons of stuff for us to sort of to jump into if we want to learn about the latest drama going on with the Rockets. But for now, I just want to talk about how it impacts us at Sports.ws. And it does impact us kind of in a big way. You'll notice right here that game one, which was supposed to close today, everybody would have had their first win or their first loss. It was supposed to happen today, but because 30 teams haven't played, because Houston and Oklahoma City won't have played until Boxing Day, now our first game is basically extended until Boxing Day. And that's how these things work. Like, we're going to have just a ton of postponed games, I fear. The NBA certainly expected that to be the case. That's why they didn't even release the second half of the schedule. But this isn't completely new. Usually we get about maybe one or two postponements per year. Usually it's because of a snowstorm or electrical issues happening at a stadium or whatever. I would say we've had at least one every season, over the past 8 years. So we've been here before. We'll just be here a lot more often this year. So we don't know when the new Thunder Rockets game is going to happen. It might not happen until it could not happen until the second half of the schedule. I don't know that they'll rush to sneak it in, given how close the games are already. There's lots of back-to-backs this year, but it doesn't matter. For our purposes, we can like, life goes on for us as Sports.ws. It's just now our game one will be slightly extended, and then some deadlines, potentially some like completion dates way on farther into the season. Those will adjust slightly whenever we find out where this new game and when this new game will be played. So So it's going to be crazy. There's going to be lots of weird stuff like this, and I'll make sure to keep everybody posted anytime I make any changes to the schedule. But there's not much to worry about other than the fact that it would have been exciting for us to get our first win or first loss of the season tonight, but it's not going to happen. So another sort of housekeeping note that people might have noticed, somebody actually mentioned this on the stream yesterday, and I didn't really understand what the issue was at the time, because I wasn't seeing it, in any of my leagues, and I'm in a bunch of those leagues. But some leagues were reporting that the fantasy minutes were not appearing in their box scores. That has since been resolved. So I will keep you posted on that. I'm just going to share this link for the live stream on Discord. I realized I hadn't done that yet. I'm going to do that right here. And I'm also going to put it up on the site because it's 3:30 in the morning here in Toronto, but it's the morning rush in Europe. So there's lots of box scores. So I bet we got a lot of people just hitting the site. So let me just post this for those users that came to us on the site itself. Okay. And ultimately, hopefully in the future, this will be a bit more of a streamlined process. But for now, this is what we have. And if you have any suggestions or tips or things that you would just want to sort of have covered in these sort of nightly or daily recaps, then certainly bring those up. I didn't exactly prepare for this time around because I was trying to fix that fantasy minutes bug, but let me get this up here. All right, I guess people don't really want to see my there you go. Here's the new video right here. Click on this. Well, you're probably already watching it if you are. But this is where I'm going to post all these sort of streams every morning, and then and people can sort of catch in. I want to keep them kind of short. I did a terrible job of keeping things brief yesterday. I apologize for that. I have a tendency to ramble about fantasy sports, which is why I'm in the business. So let's just if you've got any suggestions for ways we can improve it, I'll have to get thumbnails and stuff like that and sort of revise what I'm doing. But most importantly, I just wanted to start connecting more frequently with Sports.ws users, existing Sports.ws users, and just explaining the site. So without further ado, now that this link is up on Discord and it's up on the site, let's start talking about the games from yesterday, because there were some fun games. There were some nice performances. There were some sort of disappointing, performances. And let's just start unpacking them. So I did do a stream. I didn't post it on the site earlier in the day about setting your lineup. If anybody has any questions about anything related to the site, I'm happy to be able to kind of create separate videos if necessary, or even just cover little things here and there in this sort of environment. So if we hop into the recap of the day, this is something that I went over yesterday, but it's basic. This is what I think is the best way to really sort of consume a bunch of information all at once, because this schedule page will give you every single game that happened on a given day. Of course, we're looking on Wednesday's games, and it will only show the players that are on your fantasy team in your actively selected league. So if I change from this one league that I'm in to another league, you'll notice that the players that I see are changed. If you do want to hop into a specific box score, you can do that. You can hop into the actual NBA box score here with this link, and now you're looking at everything related to the Hornets and the Cavs will be here for you. You've got more or less the MVPs of the game. You've got a curated Twitter feed with only players relevant to that matchup, and of course you have a bunch of stats. So I invested heavily in LaMelo Ball. It didn't turn out great in game one, but I mean, I'm not down on the guy yet. He did finish the first preseason game with 0 points as well, if I recall correctly. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's fun. I just love watching him play. So I'm a big LaMelo Ball fan. Is very similar to Lonzo in many ways, obviously. But he to just be so good in some ways, but to just not be able to buy a bucket in other ways, and that's sort of frustrating. But he's still, I think, one of the most. He's one of the players I'm most excited to watch this year, even if the debut didn't go so hot. So you'll know if a player is on your team in a box score here because the little basketball emoji stats are all bolded, and you know that person is on your team that way. And if there's the italics and the exclamation mark, then you know that's an opponent that's playing against you. So this is a bit of a bummer for me because I got wrecked by Terry Rozier. And if I wanted to sort of jump right into that fantasy box score, I can do that here. And I can also jump into any other box score that is relevant to this league. Like if I wanted to see, hey, well, what fantasy game does this Gordon Hayward stat line impact? Then I can hop into this game between Phoenix and Brooklyn here, and it'll just take me there in a new tab. But let's hop over back to this one. If another way that we can sort of use this main NBA page is to hop directly into the box scores, without having to go into the sort of the actual NBA box score. So you can see that, here, if I saw Obi Toppin's game and I was curious what fantasy game it impacted, I would just click this link. Now, if you're seeing this video as a new user, I might sound kind of crazy right now, I guess, because it's all game one. But this will make a lot more sense later on in the year when there's multiple games going on at one time. Charlotte might be playing game 13, and New York might be playing game 15. So there's several Sports.ws matchups that are progressing along slowly. But I try to make it as transparent as possible. So if you're like watching a game like on TV, I want you to know easily what fantasy matchup those stats will impact. So if you have any suggestions for anything, I'm always open to anything at all. I had another thought earlier about any of our users in Europe who watch the games in a much different way than I'm personally used to in North America, where you sort of watch it all at once in the morning and you don't really follow along, hitting refresh every 60 seconds like we do here in North America. If there's anything that you think would make the experience better for European users, then definitely let me know that, either here or on Twitter or wherever. You know where to find me. I'm all over the site. So I'm looking at a couple other things here whenever I hop into this page. These are basically the player trends. Not much has really changed since yesterday. It's still kind of the big preseason. Top performers are the ones that gained a lot of interest as far as any change in like the player owned percentage, and then the same deal for the player drop percentage. We're seeing lots of people already divesting from Harry Giles after a couple of really quiet preseason games. I'm just curious here. Yeah, he didn't really get much action in the first game of the regular season, and I don't think he will. I was so surprised. I guess I thought So last year the Kings elected not to pick up his fourth-year team option on his rookie deal, which made him a free agent this year. And because of how the CBA is set up, the Kings were basically limited in what they could pay to bring him back, and they were limited by his fourth-year salary amount on his rookie deal, which I think was in like the $3 or $4 million range. And I was concerned because Giles loved staying in Sacramento. He seemed quite content to stay in Sacramento, I thought. I spoke with Harry Giles' agent, Jeff Schwartz, before the season. And just everything I've read about Giles, I was saying that he was just such a big fan of staying in Sacramento. But here I thought, he was going to go out and get paid this offseason and that the Kings couldn't afford him. So the fact that he signed for the minimum in Portland just sort of really kind of threw me for a loop, because I thought Giles' value was sort of trending up quite fast. Like, he's 22 years old, and I think he's finally healthy, and his potential is just sort of through the roof. Like, he was at one time the top player in his high school class. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure, that was the case at one point. But now he's on Portland, signed to a minimum deal, and that front court is just so crowded. So I was sort of down on Giles' value in short-term leagues for that reason. But then you saw these first two preseason games, and Nurkic didn't play in these games, so maybe that we should have been more taking that more serious, I guess. But a lot of people went from seeing these stat lines, 41 fantasy points, 43.5 fantasy points, and got super excited, myself included. It doesn't take much to get me excited about Harry Giles, but then back to reality. And I think this is more in line with what we are going to see. But if there's any injuries in that Portland front court, then I think, you're going to see Giles become a very, rapidly added acquisition. So I love Harry Giles. I'll be rooting for him. But I even have him. I even have him in this league. So, but yeah, not much of a debut. What else do we have going on December 23rd? If you don't really want to look at all the players on your team, then you can just hop down here and you can look at these are the best performances, period. And let me jump from this league that I'm in right now is a 30-team league, so pretty much every player that is a regular rotation player is already on a fantasy team. But I'm going to hop into a 12-team league here, and you'll notice that things look a little bit different. If you see here, there are a lot of players highlighted in blue, and that means these players are available for me to pick up in my league right now if I want to. So obviously the players, featured up here in the top half, those are players on my fantasy team. But down here, these are just the most impactful players that played more than 25 minutes, and kind of the most impactful reserves, basically anybody that played less than 25 minutes. So it's not directly ordered by fantasy points, and it's not directly ordered by fantasy points per minute. It's kind of a hybrid of the two. So this, I love, just camping out in here, looking for players who are putting up stat lines that they don't usually put up. You'll see anybody here. And this is a great way to sort of find value in deep leagues over the course of the season. You can quickly see if somebody put up, one of the more notable stat lines of the night, and if they're available for you to add in your league. So I can't believe Terry Rozier dropped 42 points. I'm sorry. I just saw that for the first time when we brought up that Hornets box score. That's one team that I just can't get a good read on. They've got so many guards that are intriguing, but there's just a bit of a logjam there, I would say, at least in terms of, there's only one ball to go around. It certainly seems that Rozier, who I think is on another year at $18 million, would be the player that would get those opportunities to score. But then with Devontae Graham's play last year, it kind of seemed that he sort of fell into that primary perimeter offensive option role. Then you can sprinkle in other additions like LaMelo Ball, who they took with the #3 pick. They clearly expect him to play a big role. And then even Malik Monk, who had sort of a weird year last year, but that's a player who could, it's not a stretch to imagine Malik Monk, dropping 20 points, relatively consistently. So how the Hornets are going to make all that work, in addition to accommodating their new $30 million man, Gordon Hayward, is a mystery to me. I certainly did not expect Terry Rozier to get 42 points in the opener, but I guess when LaMelo drops 0, that might help a little bit in that regard. So what do you guys think about Terry Rozier? Hit me on Twitter or in the comments here if you think Terry Rozier is going to live up to the contract that he signed last offseason, and if not, which of the Charlotte guards that you would be most confident investing in? Because I really don't know the answer. I would tell you if I knew, but a couple other bargains here. Depending on the depth of your league, it really kind of determines how available centers are. And this is a straight up production league, which skews heavy. It really sort of buffs up the value of big men. So it's not a surprise for me to see guys like JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard here, just because it's only 12 teams. There's good centers everywhere you look. But as soon as you start creeping up above 16 teams, 20 teams, 30 teams, there's a lot more of a battle to get any sort of quality center on your fantasy team. But I'm just wondering if there's any other box scores that I would sort of really comb through. If I were making this just a daily check for myself, because a lot of times I get so caught up in today fixing the schedule after the Rockets game that I don't get a complete chance to really absorb the box scores myself. So one of the things that I think I will do is really kind of go through these for the first time and just talk about them here on the stream. But I think this stream's already getting pretty long. You don't want to hear me ramble away about anything else at this point. Although, actually, this is what I'm going to end on. I heard this game was pretty nice to watch, and I was happy to see Michael Porter Jr. really show up in his first game. Wow. So Michael Porter Jr., 24 points, 5 boards. And what a triple-double by Jokic. Holy moly, these guys are good. 78 fantasy points. Not bad. Not bad for an opener. Usually we get just crazy stats in the opener. Like, I think a couple years ago, Anthony Davis cracked 100 in an opener with some 40 and 20 a game. But, by and large, this was a pretty quiet opening night, and it's just such a bizarre off season, so it doesn't really surprise me. But shout out to Ja Morant, who dropped 44, and Terry Rozier, who dropped 42 of his own. And I guess we're in for such a weird, bizarre season that you really can't question anything anymore. So if you have any questions for me about anything fantasy related, site related, NBA related, hit me up. You know where to find me. Otherwise, just subscribe to the YouTube channel so I don't have to sort of go as crazy embedding the video everywhere on the site. I just want people to know that this is going to be a thing and that I'm going to be available in this way. But I appreciate you taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you, well, not tomorrow because there's no games on Christmas Eve, but maybe I'll see you on Boxing Day. All right, guys, I appreciate you, and I will see you